Hey, welcome everyone to this episode of the original sports podcast with Mark Maradei and the Barbershop Crew. However, the Barbershop Crew is not with me today. I'm doing kind of a special one-on-one for this show today. I'm a huge hockey junkie, and I've got the voice of the Columbus Blue Jackets joining me today, Steve Mears. I listened to him while he was in Pittsburgh with the Penguins. Absolutely loved the way he called the game. And when he moved on to Columbus, I find myself I listen to hockey a lot. I like the visual that I get when I listen to hockey better than anything. And he does just such a great job of painting that picture. So I was really excited when I reached out and he agreed to come on. So stick around, enjoy the show. I hope you're a hockey fan too, because if you're not, you're going to be after you listen to Steve. I can almost assure you that.
National Streaming Sports is brought to you in part by BetUs.com, designed for true fans. NFL odds, Week 1 and futures, college football odds, including Heisman Trophy favorites and playoff odds, NBA odds of division winners and playoffs, Major League Baseball playoff and World Series odds, the National Hockey League Conference playoffs and Stanley Cup odds, and boxing wagers. Betting opportunities include versus the spreads and outright winners, also during the game. Use our link on our website, nessp.info, the Bet Us Opportunities webpage, for a 125% bonus on your first 3 deposits. Must be 21 years old, and remember, bet responsibly.
You're going to call anyone that loves you. You're going to ask them if you can use their card to buy concert tickets because your card's maxed out. Okay. If they say yes, you get the tickets.
I can't call my parents because they already think I make bad financial decisions. Well, so I think I'll call one of my friends.
Okay.
I'm a little nervous. I feel tingling.
What's your not answer?
Giovanna?
Yes.
I was on SeatGeek earlier and I saw 2 tickets for Olivia Rodrigo at a really, really, really good price. So
Oh my god.
I maxed my credit card out by accident last week. Do you think I could use yours to buy the tickets?
Oh my god, yes.
Did I what?
Yeah, you got the tickets. You got the tickets.
I just want tickets. We're going to go to the concert together. Giovanna, I'll call you later. Love you. Thanks for picking up. Oh my god. I'm going to see Olivia Rodrigo.
Yes, thank you, SeatGeek.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls around the world, it's time to experience the O's on the original sports podcast.
Hey, Steve, thanks for joining us today. We're rocking and rolling, man. You got to love the commercials. They get sent to me and I just plug them right in, you know?
Some memorable moments in there. Yeah, it's good to be with you. Thank you for having me.
I really appreciate your time. I know you're on vacation. Will you watch any of the big tournament coming up?
Yeah, the Four Nations face-off. I'll probably watch every minute of it because we haven't had best-on-best hockey in a decade. It's been a long time since the NHL players went to the Olympics or they had some type of a World Cup or some type of international event. It's been a long time. So to get the very best players in the top 4 countries going head-to-head, and you get to see these dream matchups and different players, elite players playing with different superstars, I'm going to be watching it all. So, rooting on Zack Werenski of the Blue Jackets. Will be playing for Team USA, but I can't wait to see so many elite young players that have never played in Olympics or anything like that. And then you got the seasoned veterans like Sidney Crosby and players that have won Olympic gold before.
I'm really excited myself. My son plays hockey, and I just said to him this morning, I was taking him to something, and I said, dude, do you realize the Four Nations tournament's this week? Oh, yeah, when's the first game? And I said, you'll be in school because it's a 1:00 game, I believe, the first game. I said, but I'll be done teaching that day. So, I'll be tuning in. I'll let you know what happens. I agree with you. I looked at the rosters of each of these teams, and I was just enamored with some of the talent you're going to see, not just from Canada, not just from the U.S., but also Finland and Russia. I mean, it was just amazing. I couldn't believe it. I was like, this is going to be incredible. These are going to be probably tight games. You're not going to see big blowouts or anything like that. And, you know, I think it's great for the sport much more so than the NHL All-Star game. I'm going to be a straight shooter with you there.
Yeah, just because it's competitive. They're going to be intense. These are going to be like mid-season playoff games here. And it's a prelude to the Olympics next year. The NHL players will participate in the Olympics again in 2026. So this is just a little appetizer here for what is going to be the main course of the Olympics a season from now. But yeah, I'm with you. Obviously, the front runners are Canada and the U.S.
Yeah.
But Finland is always a pesky team in any international competition. They're always well coached. They always play hard. They've got a great goaltender in UC Saros, among others. And then Sweden has a ton of talent, and they have been a powerhouse country in hockey for years and have a rich history, and a lot of good players come from Sweden. So I just love that we're going to get to see this. It's been a long time. And now to go head to head, and especially on the American side, there are so many young players that are superstars in the game now that have never played this high level of international hockey. And it really speaks to the strength of the game in the United States that here they are. They've won back-to-back World Juniors now. They're a contender and a superpower on the international stage. And some of the best players, Austin Matthews, Jack Eichel, Zack Werenski, Connor Hellebuck, the best players in the world are American now. So It's not, the goal isn't just maybe get a medal anymore. It's to win gold.
I almost feel ridiculous by saying Russia was part of that. I don't know what made me think of that, but it was Sweden. Thank you for straightening me out on that, just listening to you. But you're right. It's just going to be an incredible tournament. I'm going to watch it from beginning to end. And to be quite honest with you, no matter who you're cheering for, it's just the brand of hockey, if you're a hockey fan, that you're going to love. And that's what's going to be most important. Hey, let's move into some talk here about the NHL and your Blue Jackets. How's the transition been for you from the Pittsburgh Penguins to the Blue Jackets? How's that worked out so far for you?
It has been incredible. I don't know if it could be any better. I mean, it checks every single box, from the fan base to the city and living here, especially with a young family, to the organization, the way we get treated by the Blue Jackets as a team, the family atmosphere between the team, the office staff, the players, the broadcasters, the fan base, everybody. And then the players on the ice have taken care of the rest with an extremely entertaining team that has had, even their losses have been highly entertaining. They've been a high-scoring, high-flying team. They're physical. They play with cohesion and with a lot of passion out there, especially on home ice. They've been one of the best home ice teams in the league. And I think they have been one of the biggest stories in this NHL season, because coming in, nobody thought they would be anywhere close to playoff contention. And now here we are going into the break, and they're right there in the thick of it in this wild Eastern Conference race with about 6 or 7 other teams that think they have a legitimate shot to get one of those wild card spots, if not creep into the top 3 of the Metropolitan Division, especially when the Blue Jackets finally get healthy and overcome these injuries. So I think it's been one of the most positive, one of the most inspirational stories, maybe in all of sports, certainly in the NHL this year.
And, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention Johnny Gaudreau and how, this team would have probably been even at another level with poor Johnny, rest in peace. How's the fallout been within the organization from that perspective as well?
Well, the pain is still there with everybody. I mean, and I knew Johnny as a broadcaster player type relationship, certainly not close, but interviewed him many times. He came to NHL Network when I was working there, and I covered him in the World Juniors. So that sting is still there, and it probably is never going to go away. And we will forever miss him. He will never be forgotten. His presence is always there, whether it's the patches that the team wears or his stall in the dressing room, which is still there at Nationwide Arena, other tributes that have taken place. And I'm sure with our upcoming outdoor game in the Stadium Series, there will be some portion of that dedicated to the Gaudreau family. So that will always be there. And so many of these guys, especially the ones who were extremely close with Johnny, they are playing for him. They are playing inspired brand of hockey this year with him in their memories. So they hit the ice every night thinking of him, looking up at that banner. And I give the players so much credit, because some of them, especially Sean Monahan, who came here to Columbus to play with Johnny and played with him in Calgary, and their vision was to be neighbors here in Columbus and raise their kids together. And it's got to be so incredibly hard for a guy like Sean Monahan and all the guys on the team to persevere. but they've done just that. And they have been inspired by Johnny and Matthew's memory, and they'll continue to do so this year.
I think his wife just recently had the baby too, didn't she? Am I correct?
I believe so. Yeah, it's just so emotional going back to when it first happened, and then the service that took place, that extremely emotional first home game, where, I mean, as a broadcaster, I had a hard time just getting through that, and then going to Calgary a couple months later, where it was like we did it again, and to see the Gaudreau family, and then to see the great fans in Calgary, Alberta, who appreciated Johnny so much.
Yeah.
So there have been all of these different moments along the way. But as I said, he's gone. He'll never be forgotten. And I know his teammates, they feel that they're going to play hard every single night, inspired by the memory of Johnny and Matthew.
I feel like if you're not a hockey fan, you don't understand how genuine hockey players are. I've talked with other athletes. I've talked with athletes off camera, things like that. I don't feel like anybody's as genuine as people who work in as hockey players, as someone like yourself. I just feel like it's just different. It's different. There's a different aura about hockey that I can't really explain.
Yeah, I think it's in the roots of the game. These are humble athletes, and I also think part of it is the camaraderie and the locker room dynamic in hockey, whereas if you are not a team player, if you're all about yourself, you're going to be weeded out really quickly, and especially in such a close-knit team like we have with the Blue Jackets, and a team that's a family. A lot of hockey teams are like that, and occasionally you have some players that go astray, but to see that type of camaraderie, it's the ultimate team game. It really is, and everybody has got to be pulling on that same rope. And if you're not, then you're not going to last very long in the hockey locker room. So a lot of it has to do with the roots of the game and being modest and humble. And I always say, like, the most modest, humble superstar, and it's kind of an oxymoron, but Sidney Crosby is as humble, as charitable, as friendly as it gets. And he's the biggest name and has been the face of hockey now for a couple of decades. So he sets the tone. And there's a rich history from Wayne Gretzky to Mario Lemieux to Bobby Orr of just wonderful people, even better than they are hockey players.
Yeah, you can see behind me both of those, the Gretzky and the Lemieux jersey are signed. I got them personally signed, and they make you feel very welcome when they talk to you. They don't just sign it and hand it back. Hey, how are you today? Something that has some genuineness to it. And that's why I just thought it was important to share that, because like I said, if you're not a hockey fan, you don't understand how different it is than most sports. So speaking of your roster there, who's been the big surprises? And on the other side of that, who hasn't lived up to the expectation for this team on the rise?
As far as big surprise, I think maybe the breakout player is Kirill Marchenko. He's the second leading scorer on the team, and he was a second-round pick, so relatively high, and has had 2 20-goal seasons coming into this one. Now it's a third. But I think to take his game to the next level and to produce the way that he has, unfortunately he's injured right now, but he has been one of the breakout stars of this NHL season. And I knew a little bit about him, always as a fan of his, and just a big body that could shoot the puck really well and make plays, produce points, score goals. But to see his evolution and the way that he hardly ever loses a puck battle, to see his personality, very affable guy, a great teammate, and then to watch him and his talents and some of the plays that he's made this season, the goals that he scored, highlight reel goals, at a beauty of an overtime goal against the LA Kings last week. So for me, like, he's maybe the most pleasant surprise, like, as far as a breakout star. And then players that have underachieved, I can't name one. You don't go from being no chance, according to the predictors, of making the playoffs, to right there in the battle and one of the best home ice teams and one of the best stories in hockey if you have some people that are slacking. So I think almost everybody has exceeded expectations, and there aren't any weak links with this team. They've shown they've got a lot of depth. They're 4 forward lines, all are effective. You've got 8 defensemen that you can plug in there, and now you've got goaltending, which has been very good in the last month. And you even have options down the pipeline with prospects and a guy like Jet Greaves, who's playing in the American Hockey League and is really good. And he's been good in the NHL too. So you have to have depth, and the Blue Jackets have shown they have it at all the positions.
They've made some really good moves too, which puts them in this position. I mean, I know they floundered there for a few years after doing well under John Tortorella, but then they weren't where they wanted to be, and they took advantage of that, and that's a feather in their cap. Now, that being said, how have they responded to the coaching staff? Like, is it an upbeat practice? Is it always, like the response to these guys? Because they went from having a guy like John Tortorella, who we all know is a very tough guy. He's a stickler. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I think bringing in Dean Evison, who is the new head coach this year, that was a huge move because they needed experience. They hadn't had an experienced coach since John Tortorella. So a guy who comes in, played a long time in the NHL, long time as an assistant coach with the Washington Capitals, handful of years as the head coach of the Minnesota Wild. So he comes in and he has the reputation of being like this intense guy. But it turns out he's extremely positive and has a great philosophy and outlook on life and on the game and our place in this whole scheme and what really matters in the world. And I just love his demeanor. And he has not been too hard on the guys. You do see upbeat practices. I think his personality carries over to the group, as is often the case, where the team takes on the personality and the mindset of the coach. So I just love the way that he's approached this year. And he's had to be positive. There's enough to be negative about, unfortunately. And Dean has done a fantastic job of just maintaining the positivity, even after a loss. We just had a loss, real heartbreaker against the New York Rangers. Give up a goal late, and you lose in regulation. You don't get any points, and it's a division rival. And he said, you know what? This team has worked their asses off and has battled every single night. We haven't had that many clunkers, if any at all. I can only think of maybe one or two where they just didn't have the legs, just didn't have the passion. And that's going to happen in 82 games. And, he's not ripping the team or anything like that. He's saying that this group has worked so hard and you're going to get some bad bounces. We got one in the last game and you could hit a couple crossbars and just couldn't get that next goal to win it. No fault of anybody's. Everyone was giving them a chance to win from the goaltender on out. So that's the type of demeanor and that's the type of outlook that I think players really appreciate. The dictator, the crazy, screaming disciplinarian behind the bench of the 70s and 80s, those are gone now. I mean, right. You mentioned John Tortorella. Even he has a softer side, and he's kind of mellowed out over the years. And he's demanding, but in a good way. So I think Dean brings a lot of those elements.
Dean, I'm trying to think, defenseman for Chicago? Am I right?
Dean Evison was a forward. He played for a long time, over 800 games in the league, a long time with Hartford and a couple of other franchises. But he was a hard-working player. He had over 1,000 penalty minutes, scrappy, tough to play against. And I think that's the attitude he's brought as a coach.
I couldn't think of where he came from. That was my big hold up there. You just described basically in a nutshell the Detroit Lions when it comes to football, based on your coaching, based on the unity in that locker room. And it's really cool to hear you talk about how there's been a total change in mentality when you're applying coaching to this generation of young guys, because I agree with you. I don't think there's any place for the screaming, the yelling, the demeaning, or anything like that. And it's good. It's good for the game. I mean, they need that, and they need these young guys to respond to make these teams better. Otherwise, they will just keep bringing in the same guys. We talked about this on the podcast a lot, how there are so many guys who just get recycled and they don't change their style. They're that guy. They're the guy who's screaming and yelling, and guys don't respond to that. So that's refreshing to hear about him. Let's jump.
It's important, and it's a fine line too, because I think you also need a coach with a little bit of bite. You need a presence behind the bench. If you're weak or soft or you're inauthentic, the players are going to see right through you. So the coaches that I want to see, like Tortorella, Mike Sullivan, and Dean Evison, John Cooper has a little bit of that, Paul Maurice, and some are more players, coaches than others. Some are not quite as hard as others, but you have to have a presence. So it's that's the fine line. It's like it's not the 70s disciplinarian but you better have a presence and a voice in that dressing room. And most importantly, you better be authentic, because if you're not, the players will tune you right out.
I looked at one of the most interesting lists today, and it talked about the top 10 coaches that guys don't want to play for. So nobody you really mentioned there was on that list, and that's a good thing. Going forward, though, let's talk about Marchenko and his injury, broken jaw. How long is he going to be out for this? Or is he just going to take a few weeks off that he has and put his little face protector on and go?
Yeah, it's I don't think we ever got a timetable, but he did show up in the dressing room just yesterday, and things look somewhat promising that he could be back relatively soon. At the time of the injury, and you heard there was a surgery, you're thinking he's going to be out months, but he's pretty optimistic. So obviously it's the call of the doctors, and eventually you'll have to wear that extra facial protection. But he seemed optimistic that he could come back relatively soon. I don't know how much wishful thinking that is, but it's just so unfortunate because, as I said before, he's had a breakout season, one of the breakout players in the league, and it's just such a fluke injury. He's sitting on the bench in Dallas, and a puck comes into the bench and catches him on the side of the jaw and leads to a serious injury. So the injury luckily happens at this time where we're looking at a 2-week break. So he's able to heal up. He, along with several other Blue Jacket players, including the captain, Boone Jenner, Dante Fabro's been out, Sean Monahan's out 6 to 8 weeks, all these key injuries. And now we have this 2-week gap where everybody's able to recharge. Even the other guys that have bumps and bruises, and there are many of them at this time of year with every team, you're able to just recharge, and even mentally just recharge. A lot of them will get away. They'll go on vacation, go somewhere warm, take their mind off the game, at least somewhat unplug from the grind of the season, and then come back on the 22nd, be ready to go. And then it's really going to be a whirlwind. We've got 3 games, and then go to Detroit, preview of the Stadium Series. And then March 1st, we go outdoors, Ohio Stadium, home of the national champions, home of the Ohio State Buckeyes, and playing the Blue Jackets' first ever outdoor game in front of a massive crowd there at the Shoe. And then the following week is the trade deadline. So it's like boom, 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 3 major things along the way on the NHL calendar.
You got to get these guys healthy, though. Again, Werenski just got nicked up a little bit, too. I was concerned with whether he was going to be able to play for Team USA.
Yeah, he missed the game against Buffalo. Luckily, he came back for the last two prior to the break. And I know he takes a lot of pride in playing for USA, just as he did in the World Juniors and he has in the World Championship. So I knew he was going to be in as long as he could physically. He would be playing. He certainly wasn't going to skip this tournament. It means a lot to him. Team USA has a lot of chances, not only here, but to win the next Olympics. And you want to make your mark starting now once we get in this international cycle of 4 nations, Olympics, World Cup down the road, and more regular international competition. So you want to get in that cycle. You want to be with Team USA. And Zach, I don't think he, coming into the season, was a total slam dunk to make it on the blue line for Team USA because they're so loaded. There are a lot of good players who didn't even make the cut. But because of the remarkable year that he's had, he is the easiest selection on Team USA, if you ask me, because he could end up winning the Norris Trophy. He's been that good this season for the Blue Jackets.
Who does his game mirror? Like who do you see when you see him play? I know he's Zack Werenski. He's always been a great player since he broke into the league. But like, who do you see when you watch him play on a consistent basis? When you reflect on other players?
No, there's so many. I mean, there are times when I think he reminds me of Nicklas Lidstrom, the way he plays.
Oh, wow.
I know that's very lofty praise. There's only one Nick Lidstrom, and he's obviously one of the greatest defensemen of all time. But the poise that he plays with, the rarity of mistakes, the not cheating the game. And Zach is dynamic offensively. And some of the other offensive defensemen, especially in recent memory, you take the good with the bad. They are high risk and they give up stuff going the other way, but you take that because they put up points. Zach is putting up points and he never gets burned. He's the first guy back, and the way that he defends, he doesn't cheat the game. And that, to me, is the most remarkable thing, that you can play that style. It just speaks to his endurance and his skating ability and his smarts to be able to play in really all 3 zones and to be reliable defensively when you're up ice and at times almost playing like a forward because of the way the Blue Jackets want to play. but then he's the first guy back defensively. So it's a full 200-foot game that Zack plays. And that's why I think he should be the front runner for the Norris Trophy. Whether or not he leads the league in points by defenseman, which stupidly has been the criteria lately for a certain amount of voters, that whether he leads in points or not, and it's all due respect to the other players who would be in contention because there's so many good defensemen, Makar, Quinn Hughes, but Zack Werenski, the way he's been the MVP of his team, and especially the amount of minutes that he's playing, it's going to be one of the highest minute totals in like 7 years in the NHL. So to me, at least as of right now, he's the Norris frontrunner.
Could you see some Chris Letang in him based on his endurance and some of the things you said? Now, I know Letang has some flaws in his game. He's always had some flaws. Every player has certain flaws, but a lot of the things you described probably were very similar to Letang.
Yeah, I think there are some differences, like Letang's skating, and Zach's a great skater too. I always said Letang's one of the best skaters I've ever seen in my broadcasting career. As a fan, I remember Paul Coffey and Scott Niedermayer. Chris Letang, when he was in his prime and healthy and a little younger, wow, what a skater. And just the way he carried the puck, it was breathtaking. He changed the complexion of any game just by his presence and his ability to rush the puck, the one-man breakout, and then creating offense. So, there's some similarities there. Zach is just the smoothness. It's effortless, though. And Letang is the same way. It's just they make it look so easy. And then he gets back to the bench, and Zach is like barely breaking a sweat. He's like barely breathing hard, and he's playing a game. He's playing 26 minutes a night. He's had a handful where he's played 30 plus. And if he averages 26 and a half, which is about where he is right now to lead the NHL, it'd be the highest minute total by any player in the last 7 years.
Wow.
So it's not just leading the league and playing a heavy amount of minutes. It's putting it in context. It's one of the highest minute totals that we've seen. And it's a 60 or 65 minute game. And Zach's playing over 26 of the minutes.
And like you said, he's not just playing those minutes. He's playing at a high level. He's doing everything he needs to do on his end as a defenseman. And I don't know, again, talking about hockey, I don't know if people understand the wear and tear of defensemen, because unlike a forward who goes out for 30 seconds, maybe 45, top shelf guys might get a minute, maybe. The defensemen are out there for quite some time. And I was watching an overtime game the other night. I forget who it was. Gosh, it was the Penguins, and somebody, I forget who they were playing in overtime against. And one of the defensemen from the other team was out there 4 minutes out of the 5. And I was just like, my God, how's he doing this? It's the end of the game, too.
Yeah, the stakes are high, especially for our team. We're in this playoff chase, and every point is so valuable. And I just admire the conditioning. That's one similarity. Letang and Werenski, they're in such good shape. And that's why they're able to play these big minutes. And as you said, they're going up against the elite players. They're the ones playing against Austin Matthews and Connor McDavid and Nathan McKinnon on a nightly basis. And then you're in harm's way. You're blocking shots and you're defending hard. You're going back for pucks. And then you got Tom Wilson, who's lining you up, wants to send you into the 10th row. And you got to be elusive. But in the case of Werenski, he's had a couple of times where he's been injured. And you wonder if he's even going to be able to return. And he does in that same game. And he's only missed one game this season, and he still gets out there for practice, and he practices hard. He sets the tone. He's just such a good leader. And then as a person, a lot of similarities that I've seen between Zach and Sidney Crosby, and just the way that they carry themselves. They're charitable. They're great teammates. They're great examples, not only in the dressing room, but in the community. And I just look at the class that Zach carries himself with, and it's very similar to what I saw when I was working in Pittsburgh with Sid.
I'm very excited for that team, to be quite honest with you. It's fun to watch them come from, rock bottom the last few years to start rise. What's it going to take for them, before we talk about the trade deadline, what's it going to take for them to maintain this, aside from getting some of these injured guys back, and push themselves to, not just a wild card spot, maybe a third place spot?
Yeah, it's going to take all the usual elements. I mean, they're going to have consistent goaltending. And as I said, the goaltending has been better the last couple of months. It's going to take a lot of depth scoring. Last 2 games now, they've gotten goals from third, fourth line players, which is important. And they do have to have some semblance of health, and they can't just have this litany of injuries all the time. Yeah, it's great to give your all and to have some players who are exceeding expectations and playing higher on the depth chart than they normally would be. But you need to have your best players, and that means number 1 center Sean Monahan getting back, number 1 winger Kirill Marchenko, Werenski maintaining his health, Boone Jenner, your captain and one of the best forwards. So those are the guys that they're going to lean on here, and you just hope that they're able to. Of course, there's going to be nicks and bumps and bruises and everything, but you just want to make sure that the key players aren't out for these long stretches. They've been able to overcome a lot of adversity, early season injuries to Kent Johnson and Dmitry Voronkov, and now this latest litany of injuries. But after the 2-week break, they're going to start getting healthier, and then you're going to see a different looking lineup. And it's almost going to be like the Blue Jackets' own trade deadline acquisition.
Yeah.
These guys are going to come back. It's like picking up Boone Jenner in a trade, and any team in the NHL would love to add Boone Jenner at the trade deadline. So it is going to be fun to see how the players fit into different roles, who's going to be in the lineup, who's going to be out, and how the lines shake out whenever they get fully healthy.
It's funny you mentioned Boone Jenner, because when I think of Columbus, that's the first guy that comes to my mind. Yes, I know Werenski, Gaudreau being there. You even had the Bob there, but the first guy that comes to my mind is Boone Jenner. To me, he's a staple of that organization from the perspective that he's been there so long. And like you said, he's the captain.
Yeah, and he's a heart and soul guy too. And I should mention that he's been around. He's been with the team, even though he hasn't been able to play. Now he's been skating, and he went on the road trip recently. He has been a presence with the group and has been up there in the press box watching, and I'm sure he's been giving his 2 cents to the coaching staff and other players as far as what he's seeing up there. So now to have him a little bit more involved, skating with the main group, going on the road, and after the break, we do expect him back. Who knows, maybe the first game back after the break, and he'll be in there. So I can't wait. It's exciting to think about how the lineup shakes out if they could finally get healthy, and to see who plays where. And this Blue Jackets team, to think about, they've come this far with all these injuries. What could they accomplish if they get everybody healthy? Right. And maybe they would be higher up in the division or even in the conference overall. But unfortunately, some of their best players, they played a game in Buffalo. They had their top 3 scorers and their number 1 defensive pair out of the lineup. That's going to be tough for any team to withstand.
Yeah, even against Buffalo.
Yeah, well, we lost that game. I mean, we almost came back and tied it up, but Buffalo had won. That was their 4th straight win. So it just shows you, in this day and age, there really are no bad teams anymore. It's not like the old days, the parity in the league with the salary cap. Even the true bottom-feeding teams that are struggling this year, we lost to San Jose. Anaheim has been resurgent here lately, and we got a couple losses against them this season. And some of these teams that might be at the bottom of the standings, it's just so close and competitive. And the level of talent on lines 1 through 4 with every team just goes to show you that there's never been more parity than right now in the NHL. It's not like when I was a kid. And in the early 90s, you have these expansion teams that were borderline minor league teams. It's
sure.
This is a different ball game here, and any team can beat you on any given night.
Yeah, I just think the skill level is just phenomenal. And now I'm hearing a couple of different locations looking into get an expansion team. I don't know if I like that, but like San Diego was one of the places, and I was like, I don't know if I like that, but whatever enhances hockey, I still think it. If you're not a hockey fan, you're missing a hell of a sport, and a lot of people say, I can't follow the puck. And I'm like, no, that's not how it is. Go to the game in person. If you can't go to an NHL game, like I live an hour and 20 minutes from the Bears, and we go see the Bears play all the time. It's such a different aura when you're in that building that hooks you in and you want to watch it consistently.
Yeah, that's what everybody says. You see it live, you see it in person. We try to do it justice on TV. I think we do a decent enough job.
Yeah, absolutely.
But you do have to go in person, especially with the exciting games. Like we had one here, a couple of them here this week, where the stakes were high, the building was packed, the crowd is hanging on the edge of their seat with every single bounce, every single play. and you marvel at what these athletes do. I also say go to a game and at least one time sit super close, and then go to another game and sit way up so you get the bird's eye view, and then you'll have a different perspective and appreciation. But when you get close and you see the amount of physicality, how big these guys are, how fast and powerful they are, and then the fact that they're playing on these blades that have edges that are paper thin, and you're using not your hands but a stick to try to manipulate a puck that's frozen and is being shot at 100 miles an hour. And at the same time, you got 5 players who are trying to take your head off and line you up for a highlight reel hit. And then you got to try to beat the 6'5" goaltender who covers up almost every centimeter of that 4x6 net. It is the most remarkable sport. It's why I fell in love with it growing up in Western Pennsylvania. And especially nowadays, the speed is off the charts. It's never been faster. And I've been in the league now long enough. I think back to when I started, and you had, there were some tough guys on the fourth line that didn't have a ton of skill, but they obviously had a job to do and weren't the best of skaters. Now, everybody can skate fast. Everybody has remarkable skill. And it just all adds up to a super exciting, entertaining brand of hockey that is unlike anything in sports. So I just encourage everyone to just check it out and go to a game, but especially if you can get up close, even in the warm-up, if you can just get there and you can see how they move this puck around and the velocity of the shots, and then the goaltenders and the hand-eye coordination, how they stop these shots, even the clear-sighted ones that seem like it might be easy and they're not, and how it hurts when it hits them 100 miles an hour. It really is a remarkable sport.
To me, it is fun going down to the ice. My son loves going down to the glass and watching before the games. And it's cool to see, all the different quirks they have, like what Crosby does and things like that before the games. It's neat to see how they're so superstitious, but also how easily, like you said, they can move the puck and how easily they skate backwards at a high rate of speed. And, you got to get out there and see it if you haven't seen it. Now, let me ask you this. If the Blue Jackets were in the market at the trade deadline, what do you think they'd be looking for?
Well, Don Waddell, the team's general manager, was asked about this recently, and I think he didn't mince any words. He said, we're going to be looking for probably a top 9 forward. So not only are they getting these players back and Boone Jenner kind of like a trade deadline acquisition of their own, but Don Waddell is shopping and is going to probably be buying. When you thought for sure trade deadline they'd be unloading this guy, that guy, expiring contract, so long, see you later. Not the case, because the way this team has played, and they've earned it. He said as much, that they deserve a shot and they deserve any help that they might need. Who knows? There could be other injuries. There could be an area where they need to upgrade. And Don has plenty of time to do that now, just about a month away from the NHL's trade deadline. And the team, and as is usually the case, the team dictates how the approach is going to go at the trade deadline. If the Blue Jackets were dead last by 20 points in the Eastern Conference, it would be sell, sell, sell. Not the case this year, because they're 1 point out of a playoff spot here at the 2-week break. Don Waddell is constantly, probably as I speak right now, watching hockey games, thinking about what his approach is going to be. Surely they're not going to mortgage the future, but they are going to be looking to enhance the team and not sell off any pieces. I love that you used the phrase that, some of the pending free agents, you could use them and look at them as your own rental. I love that philosophy. That's right. And if you lose them in the offseason, okay, well, that's just like any rental player that you would have.
Sure.
And you hope you have them here for this run. If they end up signing, great. If they go elsewhere, that's fine. Hopefully you can fill that hole again. But I love that approach, because the team has deserved it. They have played so hard this year. They have deserved an upgrade, if there is one that makes sense out there and is necessary.
And I would say the GM is always the guy who's not looked at as instrumental as they truly are, being able to put a group together like that, to be functioning and giving them the opportunity to merge together with a coach who has a strong hand, yet a firm voice and a caring way of delivering his information. I mean, that's a lot of that goes to the GM too. It's been fun. Hey, listen, look into your crystal ball. Tell me where we're going to see them mid-April. Where are we going to see this year's Columbus Blue Jackets?
Well, mid-April. I mean, let me pull up my schedule here. So the regular season ends on the 17th. So that's kind of mid-April.
Yeah.
I think this is going down to the wire. I mean, they've got 3 games against Ottawa. Ottawa is the only team we haven't seen yet. So those could be crucial. The last game is against the Islanders. They still have some tough games against Toronto and Washington and Colorado and Vancouver. I would love to see this team get in the playoffs if they can get healthy, and I think they will make it if they can get healthy and get these players back in there and continue playing the way that they have throughout the first half of the season. I see the team getting into one of those wild card positions, and as you know, you just get in and anything can happen. We've
Absolutely.
seen 8 seeds win the Stanley Cup. We've seen top seeds get upset. The Jackets had one of the most memorable NHL upsets in league history against the Tampa Bay Lightning a number of years ago. So wild things happen in the Stanley Cup playoffs, but I see this Blue Jackets team, if they can get healthy and stay healthy, getting into the playoffs, and they will be the story of the hockey world if they make it. And then looking ahead down the road, you just hope that they're building. I know they're building to, and Don Waddell has said as much, that his goal is to build a Stanley Cup contender, a perennial Stanley Cup contender, not just one that sneaks into the playoffs here and there and misses the next year. So he's looking down the road 3, 4, 5 years down the road as to building a true powerhouse team and one that can finally bring the Stanley Cup here to Central Ohio.
That would be amazing for him and the organization and the fans and yourself. You know, I mean, it's all encompassing when it comes down to winning a championship, and everybody relishes in it, whether it's the fans or whether it's the players. It doesn't matter. You know, it's just a great feeling. I got one personal question for you. Favorite place to travel to and do a game?
No, I always say my favorite city that checks all the boxes is Montreal. Montreal, as far as the city, the food, the people, the game experience, the broadcasting experience. We hang over the ice basically in a gondola, and then the arena with 20,000. It's always packed. It's very steep. The Bell Center is a unique building. They put on a great show there, and then the rich hockey history that I enjoy so much, to look up and see the banners of Maurice Richard and Jean Beliveau and Patrick Waugh and Ken Dryden, and then the 24 Stanley Cup banners in those rafters. And then you go outside and you see the statues of Richard and Guy Lafleur and Beliveau and Henri Richard. Just as a student of hockey and someone who loves the history of the game, Montreal has it all. And I mean, they are the New York Yankees of hockey, right? So it's but it's the culture and just the whole experience being downtown Montreal on any given night. It's such a big deal to be there for a hockey night in Montreal. That one is always my favorite. But there are a lot of good ones now, and a couple new ones here in the NHL. There's actually 3 new ones now with Vegas, Seattle, and Utah. We just went to Utah, and that was a great time. That was my first time ever in Salt Lake City. I always love going to Nashville. Tampa has done a really nice job of becoming a destination in the league. Dallas is great. I'm always partial to New York City because I lived there when I was at NHL Network. So any trip to New York and staying in the city is always something fun. I think Philadelphia is a real good food city. And I've always said Columbus, even my time as a visitor, is one of the top 5 most underrated in the entire league. If you haven't been here, you got to come to Columbus, see a Blue Jackets game, come to Nationwide Arena, which is still one of the best venues. Even though it's 24 years old, it's still one of the best venues in the league, and a beautiful arena district surrounding it. So I would say, as far as underrated cities go, Columbus is right up there.
Did you play hockey growing up?
Oh, yeah, I still play. I still get out there. I love it. Classic beer leaguer. And I do think it kind of helps me have a greater appreciation for what these guys do, because it's so difficult. And I try, and I'm not even close to what these guys do, but I try. I get out there, and I just have such admiration for
Did you play over in Holiday Park?
What's that?
Did you play over in that old rink over in Holiday Park?
No, I played growing up in Pittsburgh, and there was the place was called Golden Mile, which
that's what I mean.
Oh, okay. I was
Yeah.
saying that was in Plum in 286.
Yeah.
Yeah, that Golden Mile was not the best rink in history. It was a
No.
dump, but it was a good place to learn how to play. And then you grow up in different rinks in Western PA. Because I was part of that generation after the Penguins won the Stanley Cup, rinks started to be built, and now there's a plethora of them in that area. And the same thing's going on here in Columbus because of the footprint of the Blue Jackets. The chiller rinks are all around the city, and they have a tremendous youth hockey scene going on here with the AAA Blue Jackets and high school hockey and different organizations. So a lot of Blue Jackets who played here have settled here in their post-playing days, and several have become involved in the youth hockey scene here. It's really cool.
That makes it for it's just better for USA hockey. That's the bottom line. I love seeing that. Steve, I can't begin to thank you enough for joining me today. It was a pleasure talking to you. It was awesome to hear about all the great things going on with the Columbus Blue Jackets. I wish you nothing but the best success while you're out there. And thanks again for joining us. I really appreciate it.
It was a lot of fun. Always good to talk hockey, and especially the Jackets. And I really appreciate the time. It's going to be a great second half of the season, not just for the Jackets, but all around the NHL. There's so much talent in this league. And in the economics of the game are good, and these events, the Winter Classic, the Stadium Series, the Four Nations, and there is so much to get excited about if you're a hockey fan. So
yeah, absolutely.
Can't wait to really get into the second half. And then, of course, the Stanley Cup playoffs. There's nothing like that in all of sports.
It's going to be amazing when that cap's up to $113 million, isn't it?
Yeah, that seems pretty promising, those projections for the next couple of seasons. So it just gives you an idea of the health being good of the league and of the game, and it's just going to continue to grow.
Absolutely. Hey, you have a great day. Again, thanks for taking some time out of your vacation time to talk with us here on the Original Sports Podcast.
Anytime. It was a lot of fun. Thanks for having me.
Okay, take care. Wow, that was a great conversation with Steve Mears, the voice of the Columbus Blue Jackets. You can check him out by watching the Blue Jackets games. They are a really fun team to watch. Like I said, I'm a hockey junkie, so I'll watch hockey any day, any level, to be honest with you. So it was really cool to get to hang out and talk with him and hear about how their trajectory has been nothing but surprising and going up. I really hope for the best for that organization. The better teams like Columbus is, the stronger and healthier the NHL becomes and continues to grow. Check us out here on the Original Sports Podcast by looking at our webpage, podpage.com/Original Sports Podcast with Mark Maradei. Don't forget that we are writing constantly. There's always new articles going up about college basketball, about hockey, about baseball, and of course about football. So more things to come as we continue to grow from that perspective. More videos will be being posted of different events and things like that we've been at. And we're hoping to get some live interviews real soon. You can find us on Facebook, X, and Snapchat at OSP with MM. You can follow us on Instagram, TikTok, Twitch, and YouTube. And that is all Original Sports Podcast. Check out our link tree, which is in our show notes. It will give you all of those links to those social media sites. A shout out to all our networks we are on: Let's Talk Sports, Sideline Sports, ESEN, Elite Sports and Entertainment, PDF Sportsnet, Manning Media, Peak One Sports. We're out there, everybody. You just got to go and find us, and you can see everything we have going on here. And also a big shout out to National Streaming Sports from Roku to their webpage, to their interviews. We're part of their network as well, and you can find us on there from 7 to 8 p.m. on Tuesday nights for the Original Sports Podcast. And on Sunday nights, every other week, we do our Terrible Talk, focusing completely on the Pittsburgh Steelers, and that's from 6 to 7 p.m. Hey, if you have any comments, questions, suggestions for guests, if you just want to come on the show yourself and have a conversation with us, reach out to us at originalsportspodcast@gmail.com. Thanks to Charlie Hodgson for doing our intro and outro music, Steve Medley for being the voice of our intro, and join us every week to experience the O on the Original Sports Podcast.